Hello and welcome to another episode of Off the Record, brought to you by ETX Capital. I'm Andrew Sachs and I'm joined here today in the studio in London by 18-year-old Sam Fenner, who is making his way in the media industry here in London. Hello, Sam.
Hello, Andrew. Thank you so much for having me.
Great pleasure. Nice to see you.
Great to see you.
Very interesting, actually. Your background is fascinating. What you've achieved so far in terms of media and being able to get a certain following is fascinating. People who are watching your podcast, listening to your podcasts and watching you explaining things to them and you're interviewing people, senior executives in certain industries, and like getting their perspective on things, for example, electronic financial markets, how to use apps, and helping to educate younger people how to manage app-based technology in finance and things like that. We're living in the age of information. So I suppose because of that level of information around, being an influencer is quite difficult because you have to rely on people, as you say, believing the image you're creating. All the Instagram imagery is about creating an image. It's about making yourself look a certain way and dressing in a certain way and saying certain things. For example, this is absurd. Mainstream media this morning here in the UK has a picture of somebody in Australia saying, "Oh, I didn't realise how deadly COVID was until I got it." And what you've got is, instead of a hospital bed and somebody with a medical report sheet and the actual scientific medical terminology, there's none of that. There's just a woman dressed in a short skirt and fashionable clothes with a smile, and that's the person it is. This is just to get clicks and views.
Yes, it is, absolutely. I mean, clickbait is a thing in itself, and clickbait has been around for a very, very long time.
It has, yes, it has.
But then even then, just looking at the small sort of community that is YouTube, I say small, it's an enormous community. The basic clickbait is the photograph on the cover art of the video looks amazing, and it says, "I just found £10,000 in a box."
That's right.
And then you click on it and you find out they didn't find £10,000 in a box. And it's things like that that now people look at people know what clickbait is.
They do.
Clickbait started when people didn't know what clickbait was.
That's right.
Because it was clickbait. And now I don't believe that people believe what they're seeing on, at the start of videos and stuff.
I think that's right. So how do we get around? How do we now? Because we've seen in our industry, in the electronic financial markets, we've seen meme stocks become very popular because people don't want bland, non-volatile, public listed things with accountants working out the public reporting and making sure that all of the shareholders are happy and nothing gets volatile. Now they're watching Reddit board users go on Reddit and influence the markets themselves and get themselves up and start making it to the point where some banks and brokers had to pull their platforms out because they couldn't cope with the volatility created by people like you and me on Reddit boards. So this is the new wave. People we're living in this age where anyone can become influential now. So where are we going to go with it? If the public are too smart now and you don't believe someone who's going out there with a rented crowd of people and a rented TV crew to look famous and and no one believes it. Where are we going? How do we influence things now? How do we make sure that the right information is going? How do you position yourself as an influencer? What would you do to get the right audience and give the right information to the right audience?
I mean, that is one hell of a question. And I think, there obviously is going to be different routes and different paths you can take and different ideas, depending on what it is you're trying to influence or who you're trying to influence. But I think, I always say it from the perspective of an 18-year-old like you said, like going into the industry now. They want people that they can trust, so people that they're from their age group. And I think they want people to listen to them for what they want.
Maybe brand ambassadors is perhaps a way forward, where you associate, let's say you like a specific piece of audio equipment or specific car or something. Yeah. You're already aligned with that brand. Maybe getting people to work with that brand and be an ambassador is better than being an influencer because you've got already people bought into something that way. Yeah,
it's a bit like Cristiano Ronaldo, who's obviously been in the news the past few weeks because of his move to United and stuff. He is a brand ambassador for Nike. And he earns more money off of Instagram than he does playing football, which is absolutely crazy.
Is that right?
Yes, he earns
Didn't
more.
know that.
Yeah, which I found out last week.
I know nothing about football.
No, neither do I. I don't know anything about football.
Oh, really?
But I was told that he earns more off of Instagram than he does.
Is that right? That's incredible. Advertising?
Yes, from advertising and being a brand ambassador for Nike and CR7, which is his own company. And then when you say that fact that he earns more off Instagram than he does off of playing football, then surely brand ambassadors does work, and it is working, because there's no one paying him that much amount of money if it's not working.
I think that's right. I think that's the way to do it. So that's what seems to be up with YouTube and Instagram, because if you look at these giveaways that are used to, those giveaways where you have someone saying, "I'll win a car" or something, or win a house or something like that. They buy the house for £300,000 or something, and then it's nothing compared to the advertising revenue they're going to get. So they're attracting advertisers and attracting viewers so they can get advertisers. That's obviously brand ambassadorship.
Yeah.
So bearing that in mind, how do you now go to something like my bank is? Am I right that it's like a community for young people to learn?
Yeah, it's I think it comes under the name of a charity, to be honest.
Right.
Or they have charitable ethics, I suppose, where they basically are trying to teach young people how to use money, how to save money, how to, what to do with your first pay packet, what to do with, what investing is, how to get a student loan, anything to do with money that I don't think is enough gets spoken about enough in schools. Having to speak to school.
I agree with you. It doesn't.
I remember in 5 years of secondary school, I had one hour lesson on money.
Right.
And I think I learnt more than that than I did in a lot of other lessons. My banks, that's kind of their mission. And the podcast that I've been creating and we're creating is sort of speaking to people like yourself that know what they're talking about, but can put it in a way that young people will understand.
I think that's excellent. I think it needs to be done, and it needs to be someone in your position that does it, because no teenage 15-year-old is going to listen to a 50-year-old man in a suit.
Well, this is it.
The gulf is too wide.
Yeah.
So how do you've got to be a sort of influencer in a way to get that level of audience engaged.
But it's a different sort of because you could ask Chris Hughes, who is an influencer. He's an influencer. You could ask him to do the podcast, but I'm sure he'd probably get. I know he'd get 30,000 times more, audience, viewers, whatever, listeners than I would. But then, is it better that we have 20,000 listeners that don't believe what he's saying, or do we have 100 people listening to me that do believe it because it's someone that I'm a nobody, really. I don't know. I'm just giving the information that you're giving to us and my bank and different experts, and I'm just producing it in a way that is just another 18-year-old telling another 18-year-old how to save money and so on and so on. And that's kind of what I mean, like, about the whole we don't really believe it anymore, because I think me doing a podcast for people that are my age will go further than someone that isn't.
I think so too. And that's the thing. It's a question of I agree with you about getting 20,000 engaged followers compared to maybe 100,000 non-engaged followers that are going to do nothing. But the difficulty is it's hard to get that because you have to target in a certain way. But also, the way Instagram and those sorts of influencer platforms are set up, TikTok, are set up on a volume model. So it's about let's say you and I now go and approach an advertising agency in Russell Square or something.
Yeah.
You say, okay, how many followers have you got? They're not going to say what kind of followers you've got. Let's have a look at the metrics. Let's go to Google Analytics or TikTok's analytics platform or one of them. How many followers you got? They're not going to say, oh, you, Sam Fenner, you managed to get, because I'm Sam Fenner, I could get 20,000 or 50,000 or 100,000 specific people who are potential new customers for that specific company looking for that thing. These advertising agencies, they don't know that. That's the barrier I think we face at the moment in terms of proper quality influencing.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't know what is quality influencing now. I presume it is that.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's influencing those who are already in the right frame of mind to learn and listen from someone who they're going to believe and trust.
And that's it as well. It's not just the right person influencing. It's also who you're influencing. They've got to, like you say, they've got to want to learn, and they've got to want to listen, and they've got to have the time to. And talking about that, something that I've thought about a lot recently, and I find quite interesting, is with podcasts and things like that. And when we're told in this day and age that we have the shortest attention span ever from phones and stuff, and especially young people, have a attention span of like 7 minutes or something
Is that
ridiculous.
right? Yeah.
The amazing thing about a podcast, holding an audience for half an hour or even an hour sometimes, and even an hour and a half, some podcasts go up for an hour and a half. I find that really interesting, how that is the fastest growing industry and that fastest growing, medium is just a podcast.
That is very interesting.
When actually we're told that we have the shortest attention spans ever.
Yes. Yeah, that's interesting. Actually, just before that's fascinating because everyone tells us you've got to do 5-minute videos, you've got to do 3-minute videos. And that's because of these I think that we've been conditioned to do that by YouTube with those pre-roll slots.
Yeah.
It's a 5-minute, you've got to quickly, you can't possibly do something in 5 seconds like that. But an hour and so you're saying that people are listening to 1.5 hour podcasts.
Well, there is podcasts out there that I'm not saying that they've got the highest listening numbers, but there are podcasts out there that will be up to an hour long. But you also get series, you get part 1, part 2, part 3 to podcasts, and each one of them are half an hour. Then that's an hour and a half of content on the same interview or the same person or the same topic. So yeah, I do find that fascinating that how it doesn't seem to make sense.
No,
if we're getting the shortest, our attention span seems to be getting shorter. They're telling us. But we're now wanting more and more podcasts. And I mean, every day there's new podcasts. You look at Instagram, there's new podcasts opening up with, maybe someone famous, maybe not someone famous. An author often starts one. And yeah.
That's very interesting, So maybe the way forward is to use that information, the inquisitive nature of people's hunger for information, and then influence people on those bases rather than doing completely contentless TikTok. In my opinion, I don't follow it. I think it's just not relevant to anything. And now they've just done a lot of. It's not relevant to the commercial world, in my opinion. Whereas doing things like that with podcasts and getting the right audience, I think probably that might be the way forward. Really.
Yeah, I think TikTok. I mean, I can't talk a lot about TikTok because it's sort of an ongoing thing that I have never downloaded the app, and I refuse to put my name against theirs just because I don't really want. I have no interest in it. I have no need for TikTok. I actually went and saw some friends last night, and I was sat there, and all 3 of them were sat on TikTok watching videos, and I was the only one. I was sat there like, well, this is just mental. How someone could sit there? They weren't learning anything. They were learning nothing.
That's right. That's the problem.
It was the most ridiculous videos on the most ridiculous things that you can't. I don't. And this is what I find so confusing is like these 5-second videos or 2-second video or 30-second videos. How are we numbing ourselves enough to want this or to keep doing that, keep pushing up, keep swiping up? I wondered if it's something to do with, talking about apps like Instagram, social media, where the whole pull down thing is like, a casino or like a fruit machine where you're trying to get something new. And is the swiping up to find a new video because you're desperate to find something you're going to learn, or you're desperate to find something that you've never seen before, you're desperate to find the latest trend or the latest meme. And I suppose when you do get that, or you get that one video out of 50 videos, then it's that little, spark in your head that makes you want to keep going.
That's right. I think that's exactly what it is. It's almost a sort of addiction, really.
It is. Oh, it is.
It's different to following something like my bank or following an Instagram influencer that works for a watch company or something. It's not that. It's an addiction. That's the short attention span. I think people are focusing on that. That addictive short attention span is not what anyone should be trying to attract, because you can't attract the attention of someone who's addicted to something.
That's very true.
In my opinion.
I started my sort of, I suppose, a career, or you could say I jumped into the industry when I was 16 and I joined something called the Global Academy, which is owned by global media giants.
They are, yeah.
And the first thing I was told was, there is no textbook, because you go to school, if you're doing biology, you get your biology textbook and they just teach the same thing, but there was no textbook because they said it moves so quickly and it's changing so much that the textbook would be out of date every 6 months. So I found that something that really stuck in my head when I first sort of joined and sort of put my first steps into the industry.
That's wise words, really, because now they were right. 6 months seemed at the time you might have thought, back then, years ago, you think 6 months? No way, I can't change everything. Now everything changes every 2-3 weeks, and you're seeing these memes that are coming up and all this influencer-driven stuff. And you know, your own experience with things like My Bank, which is a community of people who are followers. This has I've seen the influencer-driven stuff become quite prominent now. But you've got a specific way of looking at that, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, influencing is obviously a topic that can cover so many different things. Like from being, you know, someone off of Love Island to being Boris Johnson. To a degree, he is an influencer.
He is an influencer, yes.
But so it's hard to put, you know, to talk about just influencers and talk them about in sort of one sort of category. But like, I do believe that we're all a bit too clever now, and I think looking at people like on Instagram and influencers and memes and trends. When you go on, say, Instagram or something, and you see an influencer showing you something, you don't believe. I don't think people believe it anymore. As a young person in 2018,
that is very
I don't think people believe it because I just think we're all too clever, and I think that people want the truth. They know the truth. They have iPhones in their hands that they can find out the truth. People know when people are lying.
They do. Thank you very much for joining me today, Sam.
That's all right. Thank you very much, Andrew. I really appreciate it.